The final episode of Ranger Reject may have one of the best twists this season. So, as we discussed throughout much of Ranger Reject, the series has some pacing issues that manifest in how they can't allow things to breathe. It's not like they're overly cramming the series with a bunch of stuff, as they've actually cut out almost all of the comedy from the original manga to make the pace much more suitable for anime audiences. But in turn, that means many scenes that need breathing room to marinate seem to be cut short. Well, in this episode, they have a minute-and-a-half recap of what happened in the last episode at the very beginning. I felt that this was a tad irresponsible, as this episode still had some pacing issues as the last several episodes have before it. Outside of that, however, what we get overall is still pretty good. It's still pretty interesting. This episode picks up 13 years ago as D relives a series of events that led to today from his perspective. It's pretty interesting to see how D felt and reacted to a lot of these things. But I also felt it wasn't a scene that was able to be fully realized either because of, well, pacing issues. Felt like it missed something, and I guarantee that's because they had to cut some stuff to make it fit in the short 18.5-minute runtime minus the recaps, openings, and endings for this episode. And in many ways, this flashback didn't add as much as I think it should have to the overall impact of Dee's character in the story. It was cool, it was pretty interesting, don't get me wrong, and I appreciated seeing the boss monsters tell the monsters that they'll be joining the invasion on Earth. It probably was a horrible thing for D to see all of the boss monsters and his comrades die right in front of him. I also liked how D was actually there with X's too, that shows that D didn't have this fiery attitude at first. It was actually X's who first carried that rebel spirit, and D had to grow into his, and eventually got fed up with being what is essentially a sideshow act at a carnival rather than actually villains from outer space, which is what they're supposed to be, right? That's why D is so thankful for Sakurama, because he gave D a chance to break out from those chains and live up to his true potential, which is why this fight with Blue Keeper is so important. It shows how far D has come to how he's now able to go from being weak to the point that he can't even sprint to now taking on a Blue Keeper at near full strength. That's pretty incredible, and as we see throughout the fight, D is very impressive, dodging many of his attacks, launching some of his own, and while he's still not perfect in many instances, mostly being swatted away still by some of his attacks, I imagine most people wouldn't even get that far and would likely die the immediate moment the fight began. But Blue isn't without some motivation either. He fights to never lose anything precious to him again, which eventually costs him in this fight, so this fight won't be one just given to D just because. He has something to prove too, mostly because of his past with the previous Blue Keeper, and as well his close relationship to Komachi, which is why D transforming into one of Blue's comrades from the last episode that got blasted was a nice touch. It's an example of how scrappy, ruthless, and opportunistic D is, and really has to be. He has to take every single advantage that he can get. But even so, D says he doesn't need any spectators in this fight, that it's just the two that are fighting. So there is some respect there, it's just that in this fight, still anything goes between the two, even for Blue. So while there is these underhanded opportunistic moments, even for Blue and D, this is an even fight. Help make Ranger Reject coverage on this channel go out with a bang. I am partnered with Gamersupps, and using my code CTACTICS, you'll get 10% off all of your orders site-wide. Last Friday, they dropped a whole bunch of stuff. They dropped a new flavor called Kaho's Guilty Pleasure, and let me tell you, don't Google her name, but Google her Gamersupps flavor, because I've heard some reviews from people, and it tastes, well, guilty. It tastes refreshing, and it's a gush of flavor, we'll say. Yeah, we'll use that term. So use the code CTACTICS and get 10% off. Thank you, Gamersupps, for being a partner. So when D goes to launch another attack, he lands because at that moment, Peltrola sends a beam through the neck of Blue Keeper, effectively killing him. Peltrola, now with X's, actually survived in another one of his smaller winged forms. We then see Blue reflect on his life, how he turned a blind eye to what he lost, ignoring it and choosing to fight to continue to not lose rather than appreciate what he had. He got lost in the constant fight to not lose anymore, which in the end, ironically, cost him everything. This leads to X's swallowing Peltrola and X's admitting that this is the only way that she can live, which is tragic, but also quite shocking. I never saw any of this coming from X's or Peltrola. I thought he died. The last video, I even theorized that there was no way that Blue would die too because of Komachi being alive. So the fact they actually killed him was a very good move because it's surprising and it's a good twist. In most anime, they usually don't try to kill people like Blue sometimes, but Negi Haraba once again is able to subvert your expectations and remind you that this world is gritty and dark. Anyone can die, even a Dragon Keeper. And also, the people you may think that maybe your anti-hero protagonists like X's can maybe potentially turn out to be true villains of the series? I imagine X's will return in season 2, probably under the control of Peltrola in the form of a big titty goth girlfriend GF. And judging by all of the barking in my comments over X's already, that's probably gonna be a good thing. And we'll get some, I don't know, some mega hot outfit that'll drive people mad. Talk about guilty pleasure? Seems like X's is the guilty pleasure for some of you. Take sip from coffee. We then see various reactions from people throughout the organization, Red Keeper, Hisui, and the juniors, which the latter suggests that this is the start of a new war. You can say that again. We also see that Ishikawa actually died, which with the pacing last week, I wasn't sure about because it was so quick and out of the way, it felt like they could have easily done a fake death. But they chose to move forward without him while fighting for what he stood for, carrying on his will, which I'm happy about. I don't think I really needed Ishikawa in this series after what he did, but surprise, Koguma seems to be actually alive, though in a comatose state. And I think that's a pretty nice twist, and he may prove extremely valuable to the Rangers, or at least the plot, but they're all now officially official Rangers. However, on the news, Hisui is there to do damage control to the citizens so that they don't start questioning the Rangers' effectiveness or lose faith in them. But Yumeko, being as devious and sly as she is, always meddles and wonders how long they can keep the truth a secret from the people, just about everything that just went down, which is basically straight up revealing her true goals to Tokida because they're having a conversation, which makes the next scene really interesting as it seems there are plans within the Rangers as we see Red Keeper brutally murder someone plotting against the Keepers. So it seems that yes, there are people within the Rangers who believe that they are the ones in the wrong. This now reveals that there is a traitor amongst the Rangers, which is no doubt Yumeko Suzukiri. But I still have my doubts that this is who they're talking about. Something about it, I don't know, feels fishy. I feel like Yumeko is too smart to make things traceable to her. So this guy that killed Red, maybe it's a diversion, maybe it's a red herring. We'll have to see. Which is why when Tokida confronts Yumeko about Blue's dragon artifact, she's able to twist it back at him. Hey, you're the one who has this, not me. If you reveal this info, you'll have some explaining to do. Pretty interesting, because now the plot of the series has evolved into who is the traitor? Can the Rangers coexist and trust each other now that, as Red Keeper puts it so well, the balance is gone after Blue's death? I think his death signifies that the Rangers were too comfortable with their position, and now they've paid dearly for their hubris. Which brings us to the final reveal of one of the best twists of the season. In my opinion, it had me poppin'. Sakurama is actually alive! Horribly scarred and mutilated, mind you, but alive nonetheless, living in a shack while patiently waiting for D's plan to reach its next stage, which seems to be Blue's death so that Sakurama can finally show back up. So I imagine sometime in season 2, maybe the next episode, Sakurama will be revealed in a new way. My randomly thrown together theory on the spot is that maybe due to the similarities of both having facial scars and his relationship with Yumeko, he may come back as the new Blue Keeper of the series. I think that would be cool, as Yumeko does have 2 artifacts now, and they would be very useful against Peltrola and any other boss monster that's still alive. Either way, I am mega hyped for the next season of Ranger Reject. That's for sure, which I think is coming later in the year? Not next season. Well, I think we're taking a season break, so get hyped. As for a short review of the series overall, I'm gonna repeat some of my criticisms at the top of the video, so stay with me. I thought that while it was admirable that they tried to make this adaptation of the series more dramatic and dark by cutting almost all the comedy elements outside of the cute fourth wall breaks and some jokes here and there, the pacing suffered great. I hope with season 2, they decide to simply cut the opening and endings from the runtime altogether. I get that these were amazing openings that they paid a lot of money for, no stand out, and they were great. But do like ReZero did, just show the openings and endings once, or maybe not at all, and use the full 24-minute runtime to make these important scenes marinate more and sit. That's what this season really needed to get to the next level, and I felt it never really did outside of those initial episodes. On paper, this series was actually great. In actual execution, there was just things left to be desired. Besides that, I felt the animation was killer. One of the best animated shows this season outside of powerhouses like Demon Slayer, but this series, my opinion, was right below it, relatively speaking. As well, the entire plot was gripping throughout the season. I felt that it was its biggest strength. The characters were really good because all of them were underdogs that all had the odds stacked against them, which was unique and fresh. Even now, D is still arguably just as powerful as he was before this episode, so that's also a nice thing that they're going into season 2 with, which is to say, he's not as powerful as a Dragon Keeper yet, and I like that. I think these elements and Sakurama's return will keep Ranger Reject season 2 a must-watch, and it's going to retain pretty much every single one of its viewers. This series was pretty incredible, and I hope at the very least they stay consistent with the pacing. That's the best they can do. I hope they don't rush the second half like Promised Neverland season 2, which I have a feeling they may, but we'll have to see. As for if I'll cover season 2, well, I most likely will not. This may be disappointing for some of you, and believe me, I'm just as disappointed. But the views on the last handful of episodes struggled to even get 1,000 views. So people just aren't watching my videos on this anime. I'll still watch season 2. I still love Ranger Reject. I love Negi Haruba, but this started out very strong on my channel, and by the end, it struggled to maintain its audience. So I have to make the tough decision to cut it, which didn't come easy for me. I appreciate all of your viewership, and if you want to make sure I cover season 2, share this video out in Discord servers, on Reddit, on Twitter, get the likes up, comment below, get the engagement up. If you do, I will cover season 2 if there is enough attention on this video to merit it. But with that being said, thank you everyone for your time with season 1. It was a fun and wild ride. I love this series and I cannot wait for the next season of the anime. And I thank you all for watching. And I hope you guys will be excited for what I have cooking next. Thanks for watching. Bye.